Good morning, my beautiful babes and babettes. I am your resident active advocate, and today I wanted to talk to you about the portrayal of what you might call social disability in the media. So, I'm talking about a thing like autism. In the real world, autism spectrum disorder, ASD, is a description for a very, very, very wide variety of different sorts of neuroatypicality. So, what's meant by that is that their brains don't operate in what is the quote normal way, what is commonly understood as how the brain usually operates in quote normal people. There's no such thing as normal. I just want to get that out of the way. I know that I've said that before, but really, if you could define for me what normal is, I'd be very interested to know. When it comes to autism, though, the neuroatypicality tends to stand out more in the realm of social interaction. Now, in the media, people with autism are often portrayed as being very bad in social situations. They don't know how to interact with other people, and especially in groups. I want you to think of a person like Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang. He might be good with individuals just on a one-on-one basis, but with groups, not quite as much. There's also the aspect of neuroatypicality that such people may have a sort of, in technical terms, it's called a special interest, but in layman's terms, it might actually be called a kind of genius for one thing. Generally, one thing, maybe two things. So, in Sheldon's case, it would be science and the mathematics that go behind the science, specifically physics, as far as I'm aware. But you see this all the time in media portrayals of people with autism. Like, they have a special interest or special skill in mathematics or in the arts, specifically like one kind of art. There might be someone particularly skilled at music, particularly skilled at painting, this sort of thing. And in real life, it is debated whether Mozart had autism because his pieces are very in depth and very broad a lot of the time, and there's a lot going on. But there is speculation that more was going on in his mind than could be written down on paper for his orchestra. It would have gotten too complicated, even for a full orchestra to play. So, if Mozart was indeed autistic, the diagnosis wouldn't have existed back then, but his special interest or his special skill would definitely have been music and the coordination it takes to put an orchestra together. In the media, you most often see the special skill as involving some form of mathematical intelligence, as I said, because that is a very linear and logical form of intelligence. There's a stereotype about people with autism that they can only think along one track at a time. Their brains on their own are not good at multitasking. So it's like, I will solve this math problem here in front of me now, rather than, okay, I'm going to solve this problem, but I'm also thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch today, or I'm thinking about that conversation I had with my girlfriend. It's a very laser focus sort of stereotype. I don't know whether in the real world that is true, and I especially don't know whether it's true of everyone. I really did want to emphasize the point today, by the way, that I am not an authority on many of the topics that I do discuss in this series. I'm basically throwing my best instincts at a lot of these topics, which is why the majority of my emphasis has been put on the importance of understanding and on interacting. If you don't know a thing, it's important to know that you don't know that thing. When it comes to neuroatypicality, it may be difficult for people who are so-called neurotypical to understand the vastness of what can occur within the human mind. This, 3 pounds of sponge or 2 pounds of sponge inside our head is, as far as we are aware, the most complicated mechanism in the entire universe, other than maybe the universe itself. But it's all concentrated inside here, which is why it's so incredibly difficult to understand the brain. Even if you're a neuroscience and you've mapped the brain and you have a sense of where everything is and how everything operates and where it all comes from, that still doesn't explain. It's called the hard problem of consciousness. Like, where did consciousness originate, for one thing? But for another, why is it that it works in this way, but not in this way? But here's the thing. Autism exemplifies the fact that it can work in this other way, and it's a way that we are not yet used to, because the diagnosis for autism is itself quite new. There would have been terms used in the past that I had discussed in my video on slurs. So you would get words like slow or, pardon my language, retard. I hate that word. But that could also refer to intellectual disability. But it could have referred to autism because it's like, as I say, the stereotype is they're only interested ever in one thing, and they're only ever capable of focusing on one thing. That's not going to be true of everyone. Neuroatypicality, like neurotypicality, is so vast a field that no one statement can possibly be true of all people with these traits. And even without these traits, there's no such thing as normal when it comes to the human brain. I really want to emphasize this because we all work in different ways. That I can tell you for certain, even if I can't tell you very much for certain about neuroatypicality, because I am so-called neurotypical myself. I don't have autism. I was never diagnosed with that kind of thing. Autism, Asperger's, and Asperger's is also on the autism spectrum. It's a, quote, higher functioning form of autism where you may have social difficulty, but at the same time, the elevation of the, quote, special skill is seen to be in almost, if not in, the genius realm. Like, you are very, very, very good at one thing, but again, that's not going to be typical. That's not going to be universal of everyone with Asperger's. So, as always, I advocate for open communication. And if you're uncomfortable and you know that you're uncomfortable, usually the cause of discomfort is not knowing what to do, not knowing what to say. So just be friendly, There's no harm ever in just being friendly. And especially if you're legitimately trying to get to know the other person on their level so that you can communicate on even footing. That's always a good thing to try out, especially when you don't understand. All right, so that is my video on neuroatypicality, also known as autism in the media. So you see it with Sheldon Cooper, but you also see more positive representations in some shows. I've never actually watched Steven Universe, but I've heard that it actually has a very positive portrayal of someone who is neuroatypical. So I should probably do my research and watch some cartoons. That's a good idea. All right, I will see all of you tomorrow, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to talk about yet. I will figure that out this aft. Thank you very much for your attention and participation. You are wonderful. You are beautiful. Fare thee well.